Report from the Amabhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism this morning suggesting that some people who are close to the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, will benefit from the new lottery deal. The Trade, Industry and Competition Minister, Parks Tau, has selected Azarrah Holdings to run the lottery for 8 years. One of its shareholders is a company that is partly owned by the twin sister of Mashatile's wife. Azarrah Karrim wrote that story. Azarrah, good morning to you. We all know that when you run the national lottery, you can make quite a bit of money. How is Deputy President Mashatile now linked to some people who will be running it for the next 8 years?
So the recent award went to Azarrah Holdings, and the tender amount is reported to be around 180 billion rand, so possibly one of South Africa's biggest tenders in recent history. Now, what Amabhungane's investigation found was that Azarrah Holdings Bellamont Gaming has a shareholding in Azarrah Holdings. Bellamont Gaming is directed by politically connected businessman Moses Tbebe and a woman named Kumo Bogatso. Now, Kumo is, like you said, the twin sister of Humile Mashatile. Humile's maiden name is Bogatso. And the Mashatile and Humile were married in about March 2023 in a very lavish wedding. And a few months later, in December, Bellamont Gaming was registered.
And Moses Tbebe, he's another person in all of this, quite a well-known business person, particularly, I think, in KwaZulu-Natal. What's his link to all of this? I mean, does he seem to have a relationship with Mashatile as well?
Yes. So the pair also seem to be quite close. Our investigation found that they have been so close, in fact, that Mashatile frequented Moses Tbebe's house in Umdloti, KwaZulu-Natal, quite a bit last year. Now, this was told to us by people in the area who said that his presidential protection unit, which is the blue lights, the cars, the bikes, the whole shebang, often was in the area visiting Tbebe's house. And at one point during the ANC's manifesto launch in February 2023, they reported that the PPU, the Presidential Protection Unit, stayed there for 6 days. Tbebe was also photographed with Mashatile at the same time at St. Paul's Anglican Church, where they held a memorial, if you remember, for ANC members who tragically lost their lives in a bus accident coming back from that manifesto launch. And most recently, Tbebe accompanied Mashatile on his controversial France trip, which invited all sorts of scrutiny over the Deputy President's travel expenditure.
Mashatile's office has said that he and the office had nothing to do with the decision to award the lottery, and that was the DTIC minister, Parks Tau. In fact, interestingly, he said it was a very difficult decision. I presume technically that must be true. Mashatile could well have nothing to do with any of it.
Well, it's not in Mashatile's delegated responsibilities to oversee the awarding of the license, of course, but it certainly does create perceptions of a conflict of interest. And in terms of the Lotteries Act, it explicitly prohibits direct political financial interest. But there have already been court cases launched, particularly the most recent one in which a losing bidder has asked the Minister of DTI, Parks Tau, to furnish reasons as to why they awarded the license to Azarrah. And in that application, the Sunday Times reported over the weekend that they explicitly said that the minister failed to assess indirect financial interest. So this is, there isn't any reason as to why Mashatile should interfere directly in the awarding of the process. But there is questions around a conflict of interest and who really is benefiting from this massive, massive license.
So there's a lot that's going to come out of these documents, I'm sure, because the minister is going to have to explain his reasoning. I think in law they call it the record of decision. He'll have to look at all of the documents and publish those, so we should get more clarity on this.
And I think it's time that the Minister and the National Lotteries Commission come out and be absolutely transparent about this process because of the amount of concern and red flags that have already been raised, not just by Amabhungane. And in fact, when we asked the National Lotteries Commission and the Minister for comment, they never responded. And they have also been quite evasive in handing over information like shareholding in Sizekaya and all their linked companies. And we've submitted a PIA and a Core 24 in order to access that. But it's time that the minister really needs to take us into his confidence and be absolutely transparent here.
You made a point about indirect financial interests and how the Act is supposed to manage that and what the people who lost out, so I mean they have an agenda when they say this, let me be very clear, what that means. So just to make sure, Azarrah, that I understand it correctly, if a company bids for the National Lottery, I'm presuming that the minister is supposed to sort of see who runs it. But are you suggesting that their argument is that the people who sort of own shares in the company, the Sizekaya in this case, were not properly investigated? Is that what could be happening here?
I think so. The minister released a statement just before he awarded the license to Sizekaya Holdings, saying that he needs to properly look into all these companies and apply due diligence, which included assessing the direct financial interest. But according to Ground Up, and who have reported extensively on the National Lotteries Commission and the looting going on there, they reported that in terms of the request for proposals, it was also supposed to be indirect financial interests. But at the same time, that should be basic due diligence. It wasn't hard to find the deputy president's sister-in-law in these companies because Bellamont Gaming has been widely reported as being a shareholder, and Moses Tbebe has admitted to Amabhungane that they are a minority shareholder. To me, that would just make up basic due diligence.
Azarrah, Karrim, thank you so much from the Amabhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism. Well, interesting to see how this pans out. Does look like there might well be more court cases in the offing.